Alright, we're pushing on to drawing snow now. And I have my reference all picked out, and I've already taken the first step to laying out the grid. So this is your outer grid, and then translate that grid, those measurements, to your drawing paper. I'll give myself a little border first so that I have a margin to write in. Make sure your proportions are similar to the reference material. And then I'm going to measure the length here. Here's the half, the first quarter, and the third quarter. Make sure that those translate to the bottom as well. And measure your length and do the same thing. Okay. Having done that, I can now start to easily lay in my final drawing using the grid from the sketch. So this is the same process that I used in making the painting. So start with the large shapes. The top of the hat lines up at the halfway point and drawing across about a third of the way to the first mark. So I can just put a dot. Then it extends outward almost to the 2, but not quite. If this was labeled 1, half, and 2. And on the vertical axis, that would be about here. Dot. Then I can just connect those two, and you see I've given myself a much easier time, and I know that I'm going to wind up with the right proportions and the finished drawing will be the right size. Using the grid system is a very effective means of transferring a drawing if you start with reference material that you know you want to copy. Okay, so when you are finished, you wind up with the main elements of your drawing. Now the second step that I've done here is I want to keep a nice sharp edge at the outlines, and I don't want to actually outline those, I want them to look natural. So the best way of doing that is to use tape. You can either use masking tape, as I've done here, or better yet, you can invest in some Frisket film. Frisket film is better than tape because it's less sticky. You can see through it, so you just take a little piece, trace the line that you want, and then cut that out. And then when you start to shade, the Frisket is so much thinner than masking tape that you're not going to be butting up against an edge. So once the tape is in place, then you're ready to start laying in your tone. Now you'll notice that there are some tricky places where it's going to be difficult to get that snow down, so you can do a couple of things. You can mask it out, or you could even use masking fluid depending on how thick your paper is. Just get a little bit on your needle tool and carefully put down some snow shapes. So I'm just going to mask out a few of these snow shapes, and then when it's completely dry, I'll show you how to add the tone over the top. Once you protected the snow with the Misket, then you need to put down the tone of the hat. The best thing to do in a case like this is to use a sandpaper block, get some graphite on it, and then you're going to use a soft brush and paint the graphite dust onto the surface. Paint it right over the top. Now the trick is getting it dark enough. In using the same method, you can also, of course, just use a pencil. Get the pencil wherever you can, and then use the brush or even a stomp and blend around the tone to get it right up to that masking fluid. If you work carefully though, you can get the tone to fill in right around that protected snow. So use those three methods and fill the tone of the hat and the coat. So I'm going to use my 3B, carefully put some tone on the hat here around the face. You can see how I can go right up to the tape. To make sure that you are getting it dark enough, you need to employ a grayscale and value finder card. Find the value that you're trying to match. See, it's right between a value 2 and 3. And then come over to your work. See, I'm nowhere near dark enough. This will help you to be able to see the color in terms of the value. And once you know the value, then you can match it more easily in your graphite. While you work, to keep from smearing the rest of your picture, protect the surface with a piece of clean paper to rest your hand on. And then I'm just going to work like this, filling in that tone, and then I'll blend that tone smooth with a stomp or tortillon. That's just a rolled paper that I'm using here. Make sure that you get your tone all the way to those protected edges. And then after blending, I'm going to lay down another pass of the graphite. The other thing that I'm doing in this stage is I'm looking for the shapes of the shadows on the picture, like these fleecy little doodads at the top of her hat and the wrinkles in her hat. So I'm going to be emphasizing those as well. And I will do that by mapping out where they are first of all, using a light outline, and then filling in that tone to create the shadow of the wrinkle. Okay, so I'm going to work on the hat and then do the same thing to lay down tone in the coat. So I'll come back after I've pushed this farther. When the tone is all smooth and even, then you can take a sharp 4B pencil or so and then carefully go back and emphasize the wrinkles. You'll probably need to do this a few times. And then you also want to get the masking fluid and the tape off so you can see better where you need to make adjustments. So you just carefully, slowly pull that tape off, and you can see it gives you a really nice clean edge. To rub up the masking fluid that you used for snow, use something that won't leave a mark and just rub it gently. It will stick to itself and roll up in little crumbs. Okay, once you've removed your masking fluid and the tape, you can see that I have a nice clean outer edge, and I can start to stipple in the texture to finish off this snow. Use a small stomp, get the graphite on the tip, and then I'm going to carefully stipple in some of this texture. Well, it's not texture, it's bits of the cap that you should be able to see through the snowflakes. I keep my reference material nice and close so I can continually refer to it as I work. Okay, now if there was a patch of snow that I missed, I can carefully pull it out with my kneaded eraser and then stipple some of that tone back in. But you can see that the kneaded eraser doesn't pull it out quite as cleanly as having protected it with masking fluid before we started does. Okay, so that's just going to take a whole lot of time, and I'll do that off camera. But I also wanted to move to the face now. So I'm going to start by laying down a smooth base tone in the skin. See how I'm using my pencil on the side, and I'm just carefully going in one direction, following the contour of the face until I have a base tone over all of the skin. So the highlight is here, and then there's shadow on the chin. I can put that shadow in even at this stage. Then I'm going to move to a clean stomp or blending tool, and then still following that same direction, using smooth back and forth strokes, I'm going to blend my skin tone. For the smoothest finish, you want to use the flat, broad edge of the stomp. Now it looks really gray and flat, and that's not quite what I'm going for. So I need to go back with my pencil and pick out the details. Most importantly, I have the eyebrow here, and the eyes, and a bit of the mouth. If you're at all unsure of your lines, make sure that you start light so that you can erase mistakes. Okay, let's say I just bring out the features like this, and then I'll re-blend my lines. Do that a few times until everything is just the way that I want it to be. Now, at some places where one plane is touching another, you need to draw out a line of highlight using your kneaded eraser. That will help the face to look three-dimensional. The important thing to drawing realistically is that you really pay attention to your reference material and you give a lot of extra effort into those small details. Here's the drawing so far, so I'm going to remove the last of the tape here. There. That line of the jeans against the snow is really crisp and clean. Now we're ready to move to the glove. So the mitten has a lot of snow stuck to it, It's predominantly white, so instead of working around the snow, I'm going to put the color in. This is a 2H. I'm just going to stipple and feather in some of these patterns. Then there's some shading on the snow as well. Stippling with a dirty stomp can be of service here. And then move to a clean stomp. So this is all there is to it. There are no tricks. It's just a matter of spending the time, paying close attention to the reference material, and putting in what you see. A lot of drawing is just experimentation, so if you find that the stippling technique is what works for you for a particular area during your snow, then do that. If putting the tone down with a pencil works better, you can do that. Now I'll try another technique where I put in a large piece of the color, then I'll use the electric eraser and erase out little lines and see how that looks. After having done that, I can go back and emphasize some broken edges to make it look more like an uneven coating of the snow. And that's what I'm going to do to finish up this glove and the other glove. Then for the snow on the ground, I'm going to use a 2H pencil and look at the pattern of the shadows on the snow. I'll sketch in the broken shape here. And then I'm going to add some shading. So first I'm going to lay down an even layer of tone in the shadow, going right up to the pants. Blend that smooth. And then I'll use a kneaded eraser and blot out some mottled pattern to get that piled up snow look. Then go back and re-emphasize in the shadows between those blots, and just work like that back and forth until you're satisfied that the pattern looks like the pattern of light and dark falling on snow. So that's the process that I'm going to use to finish up my drawing. This is probably going to take about half an hour to an hour, and I'll come back to you then and show you what the time and effort can lead to. Alright, here's the finished drawing. So the last stage is removing the tape, and you do that just carefully pulling. Do take your time though, because you certainly don't want to tear your paper. Alright, so it helps to be able to see how the drawing will look without the borders. You can see how it's nice and clean, and the idea of the snow comes through even better with those clean borders in place. So snow is challenging, and especially in graphite. It's going to take a long time, it's going to take some patience, and it's going to take some experimentation, because there are many different techniques that you can use. But this is where I let you go. From here on out, you just need to take the time to experiment and see what works best for you. So thank you for watching this month's drawing tutorial, and I hope you join me next month when we learn more about drawing and painting. Thanks so much.